episode 3 of Sati Talks. Today we will be talking about an issue that is widely prevalent in our society. It's an issue that spans across classes and has been termed a shadow pandemic by UN Women. We will be talking about domestic abuse and violence.
I remember this. One time my maid had come home with a very bad bruised face, and out of concern, my mother asked her about it. That's when she began telling my mom how her husband came home drunk and hit her. I was so confused. I couldn't understand why someone would do that.
That sounds terrible. Unfortunately, I've heard these stories too. My cook once said that her son beat her. How could a person do this to their own mother? I guess you can be a victim regardless of your age, gender, sexuality, role in the abuser's life, or the severity of the abuse.
That's very disheartening. But I wonder if abuse is only in the physical form.
Not at all, Devyani. Abuse takes place in numerous ways, but physical abuse is the most recognizable form of abuse. It's when perpetrators use physical force, their body, or other objects to injure the victim. It does not always leave marks or scars. Also, did y'all know that locking someone inside the house against their will or depriving them of their basic rights is also a form of physical abuse?
Oh God, that's extremely sad. I wonder whether this pandemic induced lockdown situation has made things worsen for these victims.
Yes, in fact, there has been a very noticeable escalation in domestic violence cases globally. Talking about India alone, the National Commission of Women recorded 983 calls between February 27th to April 26th.
You know, there were 92,000 SOS calls in the first 11 days of the lockdown received by the Childline India helpline. And I'm sure the number has just increased with the extension of the lockdown.
I'd like to quote Sneha's program director, Dr. Nareen Daruwala, from an article I read where she states, there is no difference in their treatment of women really. They would abuse the women when they had alcohol, and now they're abusing them because they don't. Mumbai charity Sneha has seen a four-fold increase in calls, with many women reporting a rise in abuse after their husbands lost their jobs because of the pandemic.
The World Health Organization says that alcohol may reduce self control, increase the frequency and severity of violence, and be more likely to result in injury, also worsening financial difficulties and family problems.
In studies done around the world, victims have often mentioned that their abuser had been drinking before or during an incident. In one study done in South Africa, about 70% of abuse victims identified alcohol and other drug abuse as the main risk factor and said that it leaves people less capable of negotiating tensions within relationships.
I don't think that alcohol can be considered as the root cause of domestic violence. While it is definitely a contributing factor, alcohol should never be seen as a cause or an excuse for abuse.
I agree. I mean, whether intoxicated or not, one chooses the wrong behavior over the right one. Now, coming to the second most reported abuse, which is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is unwanted sexual activity where perpetrators use force, power, make threats, and take advantage of victims that are not able to give consent or don't give consent.
According to statistics, in India, every second child has experienced sexual abuse before the age of 18, most often by family members or people known to them. This has just gotten worse due to lockdown.
I agree. And I think it is very difficult to find out about child sexual abuse or offer any kind of support, mostly because most of the cases happen by known people or by trusted people within the family, or the child is too young to understand what is happening to them.
And koi external agency cannot interfere with the family unit in India, because even if they do, the family will either deny the accusation completely or try to bury it. Why? Well, because of the nationwide fear of log kya kahenge.
Or they just might to try and normalize it by saying कि ये तो सबकी family में होता है, मर्द तो मर्द ही रहेंगे, which is completely wrong. It becomes very hard for the victim in the family to then go and speak to an outsider or to a law enforcement agency or even stand up for themselves.
It's very scary to think that those children don't even know what's happening to them. Even teenagers or pre-teenagers can't seem to grasp the horrifying situation because of lack of awareness.
That's very true. I didn't know the concept of good or bad touch until I was 16, and I speak from a place of privilege. Even today, many schools and gurukuls, especially in the rural areas, do not teach their children the difference.
Speaking of good touch, bad touch, here are a few ways to spot red flags or warning signs where an adult may be hurting the child. The adult engages in touching the child after the child's parents or guardians have indicated that it is unwanted. If the adult talks with children about their personal problems or relationships, if he or she spends time alone with children outside of their role in the child's life or makes up excuses to be alone with the child, if he or she expresses an unusual interest in a child's sexual development, such as commenting on sexual characteristics or sexualizing normal behaviors.
And as we grow and form new relationships, here are some red flags you should never ignore. Sexualizing relationships that are appropriately non sexual, engaging in conversations that are inappropriately intimate, making inappropriate comments about people's bodies or sexuality. If the person asks you to do things you do not want to do, using sulking or anger to manipulate you into giving in, touching another person with no regard for their wishes.
That's really helpful, Malika. It's really important for us to be mindful of these things happening not only to us but also around us and raise our voice against it.
I agree. I recently saw Kabir Singh and it raised a lot of red flags for me. In fact, I feel like this whole glorification of abusive situations has become a genre of its own in Bollywood.
In a country that's still battling sexist stereotypes, never ending violence against women, and patriarchy, do you really think that the movie makers should be glorifying and making heroes out of what are essentially bullies? In Bollywood, violence has been packaged as romance, comedy, or as a self righteous path for the hero to walk down.
100% Devyani. The fact is that cinema, especially Bollywood, is undoubtedly India's most effective messaging tool. So, to deny its influence would be ignorant. There are so many examples of Hindi movies that glorify toxic relationship habits that the young generation might think of it as something very, very normal.
Right, and for most of the movie makers, misogyny seems commonplace. It crops up routinely in scripts and shows up in full force on screen. Stalkers are glorified, molestation is justified, harassment is normalized, and toxic masculinity is rationalized.
Stuti Ramchandra, a famous filmmaker, says, our censor board won't allow us to show nudity in an artistic way or voice abuse where it is warranted by the scenario, but it allows jokes and behaviors that are misogynistic and crass.
Guys, what about rape jokes, rape threats, locker room talk, and gaslighting? Isn't it all emotionally abusive?
It is, Devyani. A relationship becomes emotionally abusive when there's a consistent pattern of abusive words and bullying behaviors. This can wear down a person's self esteem and undermine their mental health completely. Emotional abuse, also, unfortunately, is the hardest form of abuse to recognize. It can either be subtle and insidious or overt and manipulative. Either way, the victim begins to question their own perceptions and reality. Once the victim starts believing the abuser, they become internally critical. After this, the victim is just trapped in the abusive relationship, believing that they will never be good enough for anybody else.
That's really scary, what words can do to a person. Also, can we talk about a type of domestic abuse which is almost never even heard about? Financial abuse. It includes controlling another person's finances, not allowing another person to take up a job, or placing debts in another person's name. Basically, not allowing them to become financially independent when they want to, which forces them to become dependent on the abuser.
Wow. I didn't even know that there was something called financial abuse. This conversation makes me realize that as a member of society, it is imperative that we make ourselves aware of these various kinds of abuse and be observant and responsible enough to recognize if we or someone else is a victim of it.
I do understand all of this, and honestly, this conversation makes me feel extremely distressed, mainly because I don't know how we can, as spectators, had victims of domestic abuse.
Distressed, and very rightly so. This topic has been stigmatized for so long, and now finally, that a large number of cases are coming up, people think that, it's unbelievable. So, here are a few do's and don'ts for someone who wants to help or even provide support to people they know who might be victims of domestic abuse. Do's: be empathetic and sympathetic, be supportive, reserve judgment. It's easy to express anger at the abuser, especially when not in the situation. However, it is vitally important to respect the victim's decision at this stage. Show sensitivity. Understand that any abuse creates a deep psychological impact that will take time to heal from. As a friend or a family member, it's imperative that we are sensitive to these emotions. Help them find professional support. Helping victims connect with local support groups or advocacy organizations can make the difference in them being able to stay away from the relationship for good. And finally, empower them. Friends and family can help empower the victims to reconnect with themselves, but they must ultimately let the victim make up their own mind.
Don'ts. Don't blame the victim. That's what the abuser does. Don't underestimate the potential danger for the victim and yourself. Don't promise any help you can't follow through with. Don't give conditional support. Don't do anything that might provoke the abuser. Don't pressurize the victim. Don't give up. If the victim is not willing to open up at first, please be patient.
And although your natural impulse may be to rescue someone that you care about from domestic violence, the person being abused needs to make the decision of whether and when to leave and get help. Keeping this in mind will help ensure that you support them no matter their choice.
Right. And sometimes the victim might have barriers and constraints which you are not aware of, due to which they didn't leave the person or get out of the situation they were in. So it's very crucial for one to understand their situation because it's always easier said than done.
People really expect victims to just get up and leave when there is a potential life threat to them, or their children, or their other family members. Survivors are at increased risk when they are living in abusive relationships. Some barriers would include a strong belief that marriage is for better or worse. Staying for children. The abuser will take the children or harm any other family member.
Or thinking that the abuse is their fault, having a lack of self confidence, low self esteem, depression, anxiety, guilt, and shame as a result of the abuse that undermines the confidence to leave, having a fear of isolation or loneliness, pressure from family, society, or community, hoping that the abuser will change someday.
There could also be lack of means like job, transportation, money to survive on their own. Lack of community resources like shelters or services, and the lack of social resources as a whole, combined with limited personal resources to provide for themselves and their children, especially if the victim has been in an abusive relationship for a long time, can also be a barrier.
They're also scared that their abuser will kill or punish them if they try to leave. Even after leaving, there is a very real possibility of stalking, harassment, or threats by abuser. Threats like kidnapping the children or holding the victim hostage really scares and stop the victim from speaking up.
These barriers must be very hard to overcome without any assistance.
That's why we would like to share a few helpful sources with our audience, which might help you recognize or help victims of domestic abuse during the lockdown. Or if you are in the same situation, will help you safeguard yourself or reach out to someone who can provide assistance.
A new campaign by Canadian Women's Foundation hopes to give the victim a safe way to reach out for support. The secret signal could help women in lockdown with their abusers. Signal for help is a one-handed hand gesture women can use while on a video call to alert the person they are talking to that they are being threatened. The signal involves holding your hand up to the camera with your thumb tucked into your palm and then folding your fingers down and trapping your thumb into your fingers.
If a friend were to use this signal while on a video call, you can try emailing, texting, or calling them so that you aren't on speaker. And asking yes or no questions like do you need me to call the police? Do you need me to call someone for help? Should I look into some services for you? It's just letting them know that I'm here for you. I saw you use the signal. I know what it means and I can hook you up to support.
On our social media pages, description boxes, as well as at the end of this video, we have provided some helpline numbers and links to free self-defense videos, which might help you to protect yourself if at all you are in such a situation.
Full stop on domestic violence. Young Ignited Minds Foundation has taken it upon themselves to create a safe space for domestic violence victims on the internet. This initiative enables victims to ask or signal for help by simply commenting a full stop on any of our posts, and our team will reach out to you. They could also choose to personally message us. In case they need help contacting a law enforcement agency, or they need a social resource that they cannot attain by themselves, or if they simply just want to have a conversation, we're here for you.
Now, we do acknowledge the fact that some victims do not have access to this technology. Some might not even be safe enough to use it in a home space. So we have to remember that this is not a perfect tool, but it is still one tool.
This is a great way for domestic abuse victims to find the help they need in a discreet way. And if this reaches a large crowd, this could become an instrument for anyone to indicate or voice out that they are in an abusive relationship and are in need of help. Any kind of help is better than no help.
Yes, but it is also imperative to keep in mind not to pressure the person into talking about something that they don't want to talk about and let them take the lead in getting help. It is never as simple as encouraging a victim to just leave, but by all means, communicate to your loved one that help does exist, that the people in their community care about them and their children and want them to be safe.
On this note, we would like to bid adieu. Thank you for listening to us, and we hope that this was as informative for you as it was for us. And we wish it was worth your while.